COVID-19 has made us much more cautious around others, but at the same time, it's affected an awful lot of people because of isolation, loneliness, that feeling of uncertainty. And we wanted to talk about that on what's happening today. And Mindful Mike joining us this morning. Mindful Mike, Michael Masse. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm well, my man. Thank you for the invite. Happy to see your face.
Well, it's good to talk to you and good to see you. You know, I wish it was face to face, but we'll do it on Skype here as we've been doing for the past few months. For people that don't know about Mindful Mike and then mindfulness, for that matter, what exactly is that?
Well, the Cole's notes would be mindfulness is systematically training your brain to be present with one thing at a time, which, as you know, is pretty hard to do, right? Yeah. Obviously before COVID, the mind is constantly busy and thinking about, what might happen or what you should have done. So what I do for a living is I help people, mainly busy people, bring their awareness to what's actually happening, be it their thought currently or their emotions currently, and then help them develop a strategy and some technique so they can actually be present with the people they want to be present with and not maybe in their mind 24/7 about work or what happened 15 years ago.
You're kind of like a rock star, because when I was telling people that I was going to be talking and you're going to get Mike on, that's great, because he's done so much good for an awful lot of people and different age groups as well. I'm very surprised from the young to oldsters like myself. Mm-hmm.
Well, I've worked with much older than you, my man, so it's all good. But the youngest that I've worked with is, I was very fortunate. One, that we live in Stratford, or even here on Perth, who's a big support of what I do and the work I do. And the city of Stratford brought me in years ago to work with the daycares and to train their staff. And then I started using mindfulness with the kids as young as 18 months. And then working, kind of the way up in the ranks. And it's really neat to see how a subtle practice of just watching your breath and noticing your thoughts, how you can do that with a 2-year-old, and I've worked with some 80-year-olds on the same thing.
Isn't that it? I find that fascinating, because at that age I was more concerned with what was under the bed and the boogeyman in the closet, let alone what kids are going through right now. And I don't want to trivialize any of that, but there's got to be so much more pressure placed on kids these days.
Well, especially right now, kids, even though they have the social media and they can connect in that way, right now, what I'm seeing in my caseload, I'm doing a lot of workshops online, obviously now, and still seeing clients one-on-one via Skype or Zoom. But what I'm seeing right now is that kids are they're bored, right, and they're frustrated that they can't go out and be with their friends, and so that's creating a lot of anxiety. And what next year might look like. Even some of the older youth I'm working with who are entering university or college next year, they're really stuck in what might happen, right, or what it might look like.
Yeah, and for some families, this is a great time for bonding. Mm-hmm. For others, when there are family issues, this has to be a struggle for not only the parents but for the kids.
Yeah, in my experience during these times, it's really highlighting the good and the bad. Right, the benefit. What I say to people, the benefit of mindfulness is, it's like we live in this old house, right? And you have this huge old house, and you have a match, and then you're walking around, and all of a sudden the match goes out, and it keeps going out. Then as you start to practice mindfulness, what ends up happening is that match turns into like a candle, and you see a little more. And then you practice, and you train your mind over and over again, and all of a sudden that match turns to a candle, turns into a lantern, and you're thinking, wow, how long has that painting been up here for? Because you're more aware now. And then sometimes you go to the basement, and you go, that couch is hideous. How long has that been here for? Right? And there's like this mix, and I'm finding that's happening with people right now, is that they're realizing some stuff in their relationship that they're frustrated with, or things that they thought they liked and they don't really like. And I'm finding that coming up quite a bit with adults and youth, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. It's great that you talked about that. I'll go for walks more than I've ever gone in my life, and there's trees that I haven't seen before, and there's homes that I've never really noticed before, and it's just those things coming up. But is this a lot of going for walks for me is a sense of meditating and getting away. I'll put my headphones on and listen to some music and that. But how do you deal with people? Is it deep breathing? Is it meditation? Is it just talking about your feelings or your problems at this point?
I think the first part to start is, I'm the reason I'm fairly successful at teaching this, I've chosen a weird path for a living, right? Like I just teach meditation. That's how I pay my mortgage. That's everything, right? But the reason I feel I'm fairly successful in it is I'm fairly down to earth on how we can meditate. And it isn't just closing your eyes and then doing breathing, right? It's how to bring your awareness to what's actually happening. So you going for a walk and paying attention to your steps you're taking and to the surroundings that you're doing, that's paying attention to one thing at a time. Of course, your mind's going to go and think about maybe your next phone call you're doing or what you have to do, at home. But at some point, you bring your awareness back to the present moment. Right? So people can meditate in many different ways, but if you don't do the formal training, and by the formal training, I mean put your earbuds in, listen to, if you go to MindfulMike.ca, that's one, or if you use a Calm app or Headspace, it's about training your mind the way we would train a muscle. Right? So at a gym, let's say, you're getting ready, you and I are getting ready for beach season, right? So we go to the gym and we do some weights. You're not going to leave and think that you're going to be jacked after one session, right? You know that it's going to take some time in order for you to train your body to see or feel the difference. It's the same with meditation. We focus on our breath. Our mind goes away. We bring it back to the present moment, which is our breath or our body. And we keep doing that. Every time we bring it back, that's a repetition. So there's many ways that people can get into this repetition, because the more you do that, the easier it is to use in real life.
Yeah. We spend an awful lot of time and money on looking good, going to the gym and all that, but when it comes to mindfulness, does it get the same respect or attention, or are we starting to realize we do need to pay attention to those type of things? Yeah,
well, I bought stock in mindfulness at a good time, I think. Right, like right now, a lot of the data, the program that I used to teach, the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, is currently taught at over 700 hospitals. And that the work has been going on since about 1978. But as far as there's been a big boom in the last 5 or 6 years with mindfulness and people using it in the schools. I do a lot of work in school boards, and I currently work with 12 hospitals because a lot of the data is coming out to show how important it is to have a basic practice daily. The studies show that even if we spend 1% of our awake time training this thing out, right, that it can affect the rest of the 99% of the day. For me, I don't, and this is like, not the greatest sales pitch, but mindfulness, I don't love meditating. Like I meditated this morning, but it wasn't super fun. It was just, I was bored. I was watching my breath, but I do it so I can be here with people. Right? Like the benefit of me meditating is so when my kids are having a good time, I can actually be with them during that good time instead of on my phone or instead of what might happen, which is why I got into it, because I was in my mind all of the time in my previous social worker life.
Mike, you do such great job, and folks, I'll let you know, because of my hockey and that, I was getting very frustrated with the amount of goals being let in because I'm not that good of a goalie. But Michael was able to help me through that. I still am an awful goalie, but I don't mind if the pucks are going behind me. Still having a good time. But Michael is top notch. He's a great guy, and I'd recommend him to anybody if you want to get in touch with him. What's the website once again, Michael?
Sure, yeah. You can go to MindfulMike.ca. It's the best way to get a hold of me. I have over 30 meditations, 20 for adults, over 10 for youth. Also, if you follow me on Instagram, which is Mindful Masse, Masse, I usually post at least a 1-minute video every week just on tips how to use mindfulness in real life. And I'm really good at getting back to people if they have questions. I'm not going to charge somebody if they have a question.
Yeah, you're a great guy, and I miss saying this, so we'll have to get out soon once this whole thing ends, and I think
that
brother. Should be soon. Good to talk to you. Mindful Mike joining us on What's Happening from Whiteman TV.